Hello. This is the first day of the diary. Um, Unfortunately, I forgot my tripod, so we're gonna have to do it like this. Look where we are. This is Trevevy quite beautiful monument from the Bronze Age, and we're gonna sit down in the structure where there's a nice reverb, and we're gonna have a little chat about rhythm. Okay. Until my bum goes sore. There was a Greek musicologist and philosopher called Aristophanes, who, despite being the father of modern musicology, described rhythm basically as such, and I'll paraphrase. He described rhythm as moving from an expected point to another expected point. And that's what makes rhythm. And if you think about it, that's kind of true. If I'm dancing to a beat in an ancient structure like this one, right? If I'm dancing to some sacred beat, in order to dance, I kind of need to expect where the beat's going to land in the temporal domain. And once my body is moving, I can achieve some kind of trance state. But to really understand what's happening, one has to kind of work out what that trance state is. And what actually happens to the mind when it hits a trance state. We've established that rhythm is moving from expectation to expectation in time, right? So what happens between those points? And this is where an interesting topic called phenomenology in philosophy and musicology crops up. Now, phenomenology is basically when one stops seeing the points and the lines and starts seeing in the analog domain, or hearing or perceiving in the analog domain. When you're composing, when you're making songs, and you're composing phenomenology, you know what I'm trying to say. When you're composing in that way, a composer can hear the piece on a macroscopic level. He can hear how the story in a piece of music carries through the entire track, and I think it's very important to find that phenomenological I did it way of composing and way of creating art. Many modern artists now, we're talking about postmodernism, their entire output is based on phenomenological thinking. Okay, so they actively seek to have music and art that it doesn't represent a thing. We're just going to have a pause a minute because I'll let people go by. Okay, I think we're good to go. There's still people around, but so there'll be some huffing and puffing from the dog. So where were we? Okay, phenom. I'll just call it for now. So phenomenal thinking is something that I feel is super important when you're producing And what we're essentially talking about when we talk about rhythm, in my opinion, is if I'm listening to Bulgarian folk music, for instance, 13/8 might be what I expect out of a rhythm. I quite often use different alternative rhythms, and it's becoming to the point of view coming now where I kind of feel at home with those rhythms, and I find it much easier to approach phenomenological thinking. And of course, someone's just about to arrive again. It's quite busy up here, obviously. Mostly locals walking their dogs. We've got a real happy Labrador coming over. One sec, be right back. I believe you can pretty much enter that hypnotic trance, that experiential frame of mind, from any kind of music, any kind of sound, any kind of art. The trick is to realise that it's our expectations that allow us to see between the lines, allow us to make an emotional connection with the piece of music, with the piece of art. For me, well, I've often been criticised for making my music too complicated. But I don't write music for other people, not really. I write it for myself. And for me, I can achieve that emotional satisfaction of experiential thinking from my own music because it's something I expect. Now, when I'm throwing in a particularly odd scale, sometimes it can be a little challenging. You may notice when you're listening to one of my pieces coming from something that isn't microtonal, there's a period of disorientation in the listener that can last sort of up to 20-30 seconds because we're simply not used to adjusting our expectations in that way. So I suppose what I want to say is that when you're writing your music, try to sit between that point of expectation and the point of surprise. I hope this was useful for you. Comment on below if you've got anything to add to the conversation. I love being persuaded differently, and I hope you found this interesting.